great day in Seattle. Lovely weather, well, typical. But never mind, today in this video I'm going to talk about two legendary Nikon cameras, FM2N and F3. Superb film cameras, very hard to choose between them if you have to, but I'll talk about specification. I highlight the differences between them, and I'll try to give you a framework how to choose one of them if you have to, but not here, it's around freezing. So let's go back inside. Much better here. All right, let's talk about Nikon cameras. So FM2 was produced between 1982 and 2001. Had two versions, the original one and the one that is called FM2N because it had N in the serial number, but on the front it just says, all of them say FM2. And there's a minor difference in the improvement there, which I'll mention later. With FM2, Nikon was targeting mostly amateur photographer consumer market, and F3 was produced from 1980 to 2001. Basically, they were produced at the same time. With this one, Nikon was targeting professional photographers market, and it was produced, F3 was produced in multiple variations, HP, T, but these are not very important differences between them actually. T is a titanium, it's more expensive and rare. HP has a little bit different prism viewfinder, but it's not such a significant difference. So let's talk about the specs. Let's start with FM2. It's a fully mechanical camera, so it doesn't need a battery to operate. But if you want to use the built-in light meter, you need to put the battery in, and then the light meter will work. So in order to turn the camera on, and I mean it's a mechanical camera, but there's a shutter release lock so that you don't accidentally press the shutter. This lever needs to be put in this position, so now the shutter will work. If it's closed, then the shutter will not press. So the shutter speed dial has the maximum speed of 1/4,000 of a second, and the slowest 1 second, in the bulb mode, of course. It has an ISO dial that allows you to set the current ISO for the film that you have in the camera, and that is necessary for the light meter to provide you the correct reading. To take into account the ISO of the film. The film rewind, it's very simple, is same as on F3. On the front of the camera we have depth of field preview button. It opens the aperture to the appropriate size, and self-timer to delay the shutter release if you want to shoot yourself. The loading of the film is identical on both of these cameras, and let me open it. So the loading of the film is done exactly in the same way as in F3. It has the hot shoe built in, so you can use the flash with it. FM2N has the fastest synchronization with the flash of 1/250th of a second, which is pretty good. The first model was slower. Moving on to F3. It's an electronic camera, so it requires a battery to operate properly. For all functioning to work, to release the shutter, you need a battery inside. However, it has a mechanical shutter release button in case the battery died and you want to still keep shooting, but you are limited to a 1/60th of a second shutter speed. So the available shutter speeds, so we have here, the maximum is 1/2000th of a second, and the longest is 8 seconds. So comparing to FM2, it's not as fast. So the FM2 has 1/4000th of a second, and here we have only 2000. But the slowest speed is 8 seconds, so you can actually shoot pretty long exposures here. You have more freedom in terms of the length of the shutter speed. FM2 has only 1 second, and then you're going into bulb mode. We also see here that there's an aperture priority. This A on the dial means that there's aperture priority, so that camera can calculate, using the built-in light meter, can calculate the speed of a shutter automatically, as long as you set the aperture and you set the ISO correctly. So the ISO is set here on the left side. There's also exposure compensation dial, so that when you're using a aperture priority mode, you can actually bias the camera towards the overexposing or underexposing. Pretty advanced features here. So in order to turn the camera on, there's a special lever here. And when you can see red dot, it means that the camera is ready to shoot, and you can release the shutter. And if you kind of see the red dot here in this position, the shutter release is not going to do anything. And the film advancing lever is only used for advancing film. It's not used to block the shutter as on FM2. F3 has a couple more features here. So there's a button to lock the exposure. So when you're using aperture priority, if you are aiming towards something and you measure the exposure in that direction, you can lock the memory for the exposure, and then you can turn in another direction where the light is completely different, but the camera will keep the same shutter speed that it calculated in the another direction. So it's like on the modern digital cameras when you have like an exposure lock. And the depth of field preview button. It also has one more advanced feature that FM2 doesn't have. It's a mirror lock. So you can actually lock the mirror in the upper position. So we need to press this button and this, and the mirror goes up. And now we can make a shot and the mirror is not going up and down. This is very helpful when you are using a longer shutter speeds, because the mirror going up and down can actually cause the shake in the camera. So if you want to avoid that, you can lock the mirror and prevent any camera shake when you are releasing the shutter. F3 has replaceable prism in the viewfinder. So we can take it off by pressing these two buttons, and we can detach the prism and see the focusing screen here. It's very easy to replace the focusing screen on F3 as well, because you don't need any screwdriver to just take it off and replace the focusing screen, which I did. I bought a different version of the focusing screen. There are different screens that help you to focus in a different way. Also, you can shoot using basically like a waist level viewfinder. So you can take it off, and then if you want to shoot something from a lower angle, you don't need to lie on the ground trying to look into the viewfinder. You can just take it off, you can put it very low, and you can look from the top of the camera and you can see the image and you can focus on everything else. Because there's no prism between your eyes and the lens, the image will be reversed. But that's a cool feature, you can use it like a Hasselblad camera. Another distinct difference between F3 and FM2 is that F3 doesn't have hot shoe. So you cannot just attach the flash on top of it, but there's a connector here to connect the flash in a different way, and F3 actually has a TTL support for the flash. So if you're into flash photography, this will provide you better integration with your flash. So speaking of flash photography, the flash synchronization on F3 is 1/80th of a second maximum. So FM2N has a higher speed flash synchronization. F3 is a bit heavier and bigger than FM2. It's not a significant difference, but it's noticeable. F3 has a grip, a bit better grip here, and FM2 is a very clean body, but there's no grip, so I think F3 is a better ergonomically designed than FM2. The one problem that I have with FM2 is how the unlocking the release shutter button works. So this film advanced lever has to be in this position in order to be able to make a shot. But when I'm making a shot and when I'm focusing, I need to look into the viewfinder, and I'm shooting a portrait like that. When I'm trying to put my eye to the viewfinder, the lever presses against my forehead, and it's actually quite uncomfortable because I cannot move my eye close enough. This is a strange ergonomic decision. So like if I have to work around, I had to put the camera in a different way, and I'm right-handed, so I'm used to shooting like that, and this is more natural for me. Shooting like this is not very natural because the wrist bends in that way, and I have to hold camera that way. So this is something that I don't like about FM2. With F3, you don't need to worry about that lever because it's always closed. You advance the film, you close it, you're ready to shoot, and your thumb is always on that lever, holding it. The grip is more comfortable. Here, I have to advance the film, and then I cannot close it, so I need to put my thumb somewhere else. Now, if you have to make a choice and get only one, how would you choose? I can provide you my way of thinking about it. The most important thing, an important difference between them is that FM2N is fully mechanical camera. You don't need a battery. And if you're not using the built-in light meter, you're using phone or dedicated light meter, you can take a battery off. You don't need to worry about the battery leaking and damaging the camera. You know that it's not going to die. You don't need to have a spare battery. And F3 is an electronic camera, and you have to have a spare battery, which is tiny, it's small, it doesn't add any weight, no problem. However, the repairability of these cameras is different as well. So mechanical camera can be mostly often fixed. If something goes wrong in mechanics, there are people who know how to repair them. The electronics, if it dies, it's pretty much done. You can throw it away. You can throw it out, and you'll have to probably get a new one. I'm not an expert in repairing, but that's what I've heard people explain. The price-wise, they are relatively similar. Today, 2023, it's end of the year, and FM2 on eBay I found in the range of $270, plus minus depending on the conditions, and F3 in the range of $350, plus minus depending on the version and the conditions. Titanium version is like crazy money, but you can get them in that range, and the difference is around $100, so it's not as big. I don't think it should be a main decision factor here. So I would probably think in terms of, do you want a fully mechanical or you're okay with the battery? And ergonomically, F3 is way more superior in my opinion. It's a bit heavier, so if you're trying to go very light, go for FM2. If you have smaller hands, FM2 is also probably a bit more comfortable for you. This is a bit heavier, it has a bit better grip. It has an actual, grip here, and holding it, because you don't need to open the advanced lever, it's more comfortable. I usually lean towards shooting with F3. I don't use FM2 very often. It's more of a backup camera for me. The idea for me getting two of them was that I can load black and white and color film, and then I can take them both together. They're very small bodies. I use the same lenses with them, and I can shoot black and white and switch between color and black and white easily, because 36 exposures, it's quite a lot. And conditions can change, and you can go from one location to another, and you want to shoot black and white, you don't want to ruin color film and so on. So for me, having two of them made sense in that regards. But if I had to choose one, I would go with F3. It's more advanced, it has more features, the aperture priority sometimes is convenient when I don't want to fuff with the shutter speed myself, or just turn in automatic mode and just go for it. The mirror lock-up, if you shoot long exposures, this is definitely, F3 is definitely a better camera. It goes up to 8 seconds already built in, you don't need to have a bulb and timer. though the flash photography might be a bit more interested in FM2 because it has a hot shoe. You can just use the flash in a normal way, and it also has a connector for the flash. It doesn't have TTL though, but the synchronization speed is 1/250th of a second, where here it's slower. It's just 1/80th of a second, I think. But I don't do flash photography a lot, well, at all with film actually, so I don't care about that. So there you go, that's it. This problem with the lever, man, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Is it my pet peeve, or is it something that anybody else noticed? Like it's really uncomfortable to shoot portrait that way. I think it leaves a mark. Based on the differences that I mentioned, pros and cons, let me know in the comments below, which one would you choose, FM2 or F3? Follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.